Hi, Roy here, and welcome again to another edition of The Right Has Left. I am your host, Roy Garden, and we are so close to 30 episodes on our Substack as well as our YouTube channel. We want to thank you all for subscribing to our channel, and we have got a lot of news going on, especially late breaking news. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The state of Alaska may be hosting a meeting between Vladimir Putin as well as Donald Trump. And they're getting very close to setting this all up, so we're pretty excited about that. I guess if you think that this is going to materialize, as far as Zelensky, well, he's not sure if he's going to be coming or not, but they're looking forward to it. So President Donald Trump said he will be meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin next Friday in the state of Alaska after earlier in the day previewing terms of a potential peace agreement to all of these folks. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. As far as the meeting goes, they said that, well, maybe or maybe not the other gentleman, Zelensky may be coming, but they're not absolutely sure whether or not he's going to be making it or not. They want to include all three, but, it's, as they say, it's still a fluid situation right now. The highly anticipated meeting between Donald Trump as President of the United States. Of course, he's always got to say himself, as President of the United States. He's very proud that I'm President of the United States. We already know that, Mr. President, Mr. Donald Trump, but, he always likes to emphasize that he is the president. So it'll take place next Friday, August 15th, 2025, in the great state of Alaska, so he says, and further details to follow. He posted all this on his Truth Social, which is his favorite go-to social media platform. Ukraine's President Zelensky quashed the idea of any territory formally changing hands in a video address after Trump's announcement that he and Ukraine is also ready to work together with President Trump, but vowed his people will not give their land to the occupier. So Trump's announcement, which comes on the day he has set as the deadline for Putin to make peace or face severe economic punishment, marks a major movement and a moment in the United States president's relationship with Russian autocrat Vladimir Putin. There hasn't been a Russian visit to any U.S. territory or land since 2015, and he hasn't met with Trump on U.S. soil since 2019. U.S. officials, including Trump, have briefed European leaders and Ukrainian officials on a plan offered by Putin to halt the war in Ukraine in exchange for significant territorial concessions by Kiev, according to the Western officials briefed on the matter. Now, what this all means, before I go into other news, is this: Donald Trump has tried this so many times before to, have a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia. It has never materialized. Either Putin thumbs his nose at him and plays along and then goes back to bombing Ukraine, or something else breaks. So even though we're having all these meetings, it's going to be a simple wait and see situation to see what happens, because we all know that these things have happened before with phone calls and everything else, and nothing materializes. And Trump so badly wants a peace agreement. And I'll tell you why. I mean, we all want peace between Ukraine and Russia, as well as we want the bombing to stop in Palestine. And speaking of Palestine, Benjamin Netanyahu has again stated that he is going to take all of Gaza, including Gaza City, for Israel, as Canada and other European countries fight to declare Palestine as a free and sovereign state. And we want this to, of course, happen. And as far as being a free and sovereign state for Palestine, but and all, Canada and other European countries want to recognize that, but unfortunately, Netanyahu says he's going to take Palestine and Gaza and Gaza City, and then go from there. People, and a lot of people say, well, we got to support Israel. I get that. I'm not going to get into a religious and discussion here. But what is sad here is a lot of people don't understand, for those who are supporting Palestine, they are supporting the Palestinian people. They're not supporting Hamas. They're supporting the Palestinian people. I have gotten into this discussion over and over and over again. And ignorant people who say, well, then you're against Israel, is not necessarily the case. They're against all the bombing and the aggressive takeover by Netanyahu. I mean, and some countries, he said he has committed war crimes, and probably if you look at it, with all the killing of the innocent Palestinian people and their children and the bombing, you've got to say, I wonder. So the bottom line here is the people who are supporting Palestine, they are supporting Palestine to be a free state, and they are supporting the Palestinian people, the innocent Palestinian people who have not taken sides. They're dying, their homes, the hospitals, the country's being destroyed, they're starving to death. That's who the Palestinian people are supporting. So when you get into this ignorant stance of, people cutting down the, U.S. citizens and everybody else because they're supporting Palestine, you got to remember, they are supporting the Palestinian people, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. So, use your critical thinking skills on things like that, folks. You've got to be able to understand where all of this stuff is coming from. So, please understand that. And other late breaking news before I get into the crux of my entire podcast. According to recent reports, the United States and our military organization called the United States Air Force, which my wife has been a proud member, and she's a veteran, as is my brother, who has since passed away. He is a veteran of the United States Air Force. Well, the United States Air Force has denied early retirement benefits to transgender service members with 15 to 18 years of service. Now, this decision means that those individuals will be separated from the service without retirement benefits and will instead be offered a lump sum separation payment, typically given to junior troops. Now, this policy shift is a part of a broader directive from the Pentagon that limit the rights of transgender service members following the Supreme Court allowing the Trump administration's ban on transgender people serving in the military to take effect this past May in 2025. It is important to note separation, not service ban. The policy specifically targets transgender service members for separation rather than banning transgender people from joining the military in the first place. Potential impact: the decision to deny early retirement affects individuals nearing the 20-year mark and needed for full retirement benefits, and has sparked concerns about the impact of the transgender community and the ongoing debate surrounding inclusion and discrimination within the military. Reversals of approvals: some service members who had previously been approved for early retirement were later notified that those approvals had been revoked. Legal challenges, of course. Legal challenges against the ban and its implementation are currently underway, with organizations representing transgender service members arguing that the policy is discriminatory and lacks evidence to support claims of reduced military readiness. So, my take on this: transgender service people are just as capable of serving as those who are straight. Again, this is just the Trump administration who has completely dismantled DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially within the military. I remember we used to have the ask, don't tell. So, all transgender service members, and there have been many, and especially high-ranking, have served our country well. But we can't have that. We want straight white people. We want straight white women and guys in the military. Tough. And everybody else, you need to get the heck out of there. So, that's, even though we've had discussions when we were appointing these people, for their appointments in the White House when Trump put together his first administration, and they all said, oh, yeah, and then as soon as they got in, we're going to change all that. So it just goes on and on and on. So, what the hell do you expect? You're going to get all of this, and it's sad, but that's exactly what happens. Moving on to other news, citing India and Pakistan ceasefire and other instances, White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said it's well past time that President Trump was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And now this kind of gets into what I was talking about earlier with his dire desire to have peace between, or a ceasefire at the very least, between Ukraine and Russia, and these ongoing meetings, and also trying to get some kind of a deal done with the ceasefire in between Israel and the Palestinian people. And I want that. Trust me, I do want that, as everybody. But see, sometimes you look for a hidden agenda why Trump wants all of this. Well, it's the Nobel Peace Prize. He's extremely jealous that, our past presidents have received those, and he wants one too. And he's had a couple, but he is, he's really upset that Obama has gotten one. So 4 U.S. presidents have so far gotten it, and Donald Trump wants it too. The Nobel Peace Prize has come up multiple times, more recently from Trump's own team, often from his MAGA base, and of course from those who want favors, such as leaders of Pakistan and Israel, as Trump seeks a legacy of prestige along with brute power. I'm stopping wars, and I hate to see people killed, Donald Trump said at a dinner hosted by Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently. I'm stopping wars, and I just don't want to see people killed. So he has said that, and again, this is great. I'm being transparent here. I am not knocking one iota that we need to have peace. We need to have these wars stopped. God, do we know that we need to have that done. But when sometimes you see a kind of a hidden agenda, as because all of Trump's White House cabinet and his supporters have said he needs a Nobel Peace Prize. Well, as you know, to get that, the key word is peace, and you got to have ceasefires and peace. So get that all together, and you will have a candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize. So, and this is what you got to do. And this is why Trump, is really working hard to get this all done. So he can get the Nobel Peace Prize. And if he gets it, great. If he get these ceasefires all done, that's fantastic too. God, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? And if he could broker that, more power to him, that we can get some ceasefires and all of this fighting stopped. Oh, that would be so beautiful. Moving on. Well, guess who else is in the news? Governor Abbott. Yes, Governor Abbott has acted to remove Texas Democratic Representative Gene Wu from office after he refused to return to Austin, saying he will target all derelict Democrats. Yes, he will do that. So, as you know, a lot of in fact, most of the Democratic House in Texas took off because of the gerrymandering that they want to do on the Republican base. And so they're doing this to stop a Republican drawing congressional map. And so Democrats appeared undeterred by Republicans' threats, despite facing possible political backlash, including fines and legal challenges. They're using every tool left to block a redistricting plan that could lock in Republican advantage for years. So Abbott announced this past Tuesday that he's taking emergency action through a filing with the state Supreme Court. A 2021 legal opinion from Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton provides a possible legal basis for removing lawmakers who intentionally break quorum through quo warranto proceedings. Abbott gave House Democrats a deadline of 3 p.m. This coming Monday. And what they're going to say is, what is at stake here? Nothing less than the future of Texas. Abbott wrote in the filing, which is to strip Wu of his seat. If a small fraction of reluctant lawmakers choose to run out of the clock today, they can do so for every regular or special session, potentially bankrupting the state in an attempt to get their way. So this is just going on and on and on. So for those of you who may not know what gerrymandering is, of course, that's redistricting certain areas of a state. So it favors a certain political party. So Texas is obviously doing this under orders from Trump so they can get 5 congressional seats added because they know they are in trouble for the midterms. And it's no secret they possibly are. And the Democrats can maybe regain control of the House. They don't stand much of a chance of regaining the Senate in the midterms. There's a slim possibility, but I don't think it's going to happen. But they stand a very good chance of regaining the House, which would stop most of Trump's policies and future, things that he wants to do. So Florida is also, here in Florida, they're also following suit with that and maybe gerrymandering the districts here so it favors Republicans. And of course, the Democrats, they're going to have to do something themselves so they can fight back. And thus the state of California may be some redistricting. So with New York, that's a little tough up there because they actually have laws in place to avoid that. And we have heard that Indiana is also going to follow suit for redistricting as well. This is I understand the reason. Trump would just absolutely have a tissy fit if he lost control of the House, and this is why he's doing that. If he lost control and he is just enjoying it every single day, every single hour, every single minute of the power that he has, as he has turned the U.S. into an authoritarian country. If the House Democrats did regain control, obviously they would put a stop to a lot of this. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But this gerrymandering is ridiculous. It's like 6th graders playing in a sandbox of those who with the most toys wins. So what are you going to do? Donald Trump also, he himself couldn't resist things that has been going on with him in latest little praise to himself. And this is kind of sad how he did this, but he recently was at a Purple Heart Day ceremony. Again, these are people who have won the Purple Heart. And he had to remind the crowd that the minor injury he suffered during his last year's assassination attempt weren't easy for him either. He did talk to the people who won the Purple Heart, and I appreciate that. But every time he does something, he has to, put himself in the middle of it. And I feel that that's not very couth, okay? If you're going to have a Purple Heart ceremony, just keep it to the people who have won the Purple Heart and not the people who, like yourself, got shot maybe in the ear a little bit and make a big scene about it. So, he hosted nearly 100 people who have been awarded the Purple Heart at a ceremony in the White House on Thursday, and the medal is awarded to service members who are wounded or killed in action against an enemy. Now, 3 of the attendees who are obviously strong Trump supporters handed Trump their own medals after a gunman tried to kill the then presidential candidate at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania in July of 2024. While that in itself is an extreme act of kindness, Trump could not resist making himself the center of attention. So that is why I did this story. He has a tendency of every time he's at some kind of a ceremony or in trying, where other people are supposed to be the center of attention and not himself, he's always got to throw in his 2 cents worth and, make it about himself. And folks, that's just really not cool. I thank so much of the Purple Heart awardees that had received the Purple Heart, those who were wounded, and sadly those who were killed in action. God bless them. And if they wanted to give those who wanted to give some of the Purple Hearts to the president, that's their choice. And again, I thank them so much for their service. But, Donald, you don't have to talk about yourself and everything that you do when the cameras are on. You put it, sometimes it's got to be about somebody else, okay? All right, let's move on. A former FBI agent charged with inciting rioters to kill police officers during a January 6th attack at the U.S. Capitol, and it's this guy right here, Jared L. Wise. Yeah, he was appointed as an advisor to a Justice Department task force, established again by Donald Trump. This task force, known as the Weaponization Working Group, was reportedly created to seek retribution against Trump's political adversaries and investigate alleged abuses of the justice system. This is a shocking news, as this former FBI employee, who had terrible behavior at the January 6th insurrection, his actions were deplorable. Watch this.
I'm former law enforcement. You're disgusting. You are the Nazi. You are the Gestapo. You can't see it because you're chasing your pension, right? Your pension, your retirement, right? That's what runs your life, your retirement.
The sad thing is they're not even going to get their pension because it's going to be worthless.
And shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. Yeah. Fuck that. Yeah.
So during his criminal trial for his involvement in the January 6th attack, Wise did admit that to calling the police Nazis and Gestapo and yelling "kill 'em" while observing other rioters assaulting officers. He admitted that. So, there were some Republicans who have been recently interviewed on news stations about this event. They were saying, I don't have any information. I don't know. That may not be true. Are you sure? They stuttered and stammered, and it's on tape that this guy said this. He used to work for the FBI himself, and Republicans still, for God's sakes, whatever happens, they still won't, come to the base and come to bat and say what is true. They will support Donald Trump no matter what. I don't know what's wrong with him. And I'm going to talk about this later on my spotlight about these Republican elected officials that go back to their home states, and they still will not, they defend Trump to their death. That's what they'll do. So anyway, Wise later testified that he was just reacting to what he perceived as police brutality and didn't actually intend for anyone to die. He was just mad and shooting his mouth off. And of course, his case was dismissed, and Trump's first day back in office, he gave immunity and clemency to everybody as part of the mass, rioting that happened on January 6th. So they all, they lost all the charges against them, and they're all heroes now. So Wise's appointment to the Justice Department task force is just considered remarkable and controversial given his past actions and statements. This is just another example of Trump's makeup of his staff and cabinet picks, and I totally agree with that. All of these people, and the attack on our nation's capital on January 6th was just deplorable. And you saw that video of the stuff that was going on. Police officers were hurt and some killed. And, Donald Trump thought they were all heroes and patriots. And now you get this guy who's now on Trump's cabinet. The same guy who said, kill police officers. And it's absolutely, it's sad. And it breaks my heart that this kind of stuff has to go on. And I don't know. I really don't know. All right. And other breaking news stories that just happened. This fellow here, he is a senator from Utah. And this story, folks, is scary, and it's going to break your heart. So a Utah GOP senator changed a child rape law after one of his relatives was accused of sex with a minor, an 18-year-old in Utah who was accused of having sex with a 13-year-old girl. He avoided jail time now after the laws governing sexual offenses were changed while his relative was president of the state Senate. Senate President J. Stewart Adams, this guy right here, I want you to take a good look at him, confided to legislatures that the law relating to his relative's case should be reviewed in a large bill that was passed in 2024, according to a report from the Salt Lake City Tribune. Now, Adams told the Salt Lake Tribune that some have suggested that this change was made to benefit a case that I was made aware of involving the high school senior. Of course, this guy goes, well, that's simply not true. That's not what really happened. While the sponsor of the bill was aware of the case, I did not request the legislation and did not intervene or give input to the drafting of the bill. Sure you didn't, guy. So why is all this important? Especially this case. The fact that the 18-year-old was related to someone with significant political power in Utah has raised questions of whether or not the legislation was adopted in order to make the sentencing less strict. Now, while the law did not apply retroactively and the 18-year-old was not charged with the new lower-level crime created by the bill, they nevertheless avoided further jail time and were not required to register as a sex offender after the bill was passed. So, this bill is known as State Bill 213. It's a 49-page bill, and it was sponsored by a Republican Senate Majority Leader, Kirk Cullimore, a good friend of the guy. It was passed into law in March of 2024, changing sentencing rules over sex between teenagers. Now, prior to the bill passing, the 18-year-old could have faced a charge of child rape, which is a first-degree felony that would have required them to register as a sex offender along with a prison sentence ranging anywhere from 6 years to life in jail. Now, that same crime is a third-degree felony with less jail time and possibly no jail time if any of the offenses are proven in court. So, this is Utah, folks, a very conservative state. You know, the state that used to have Mormons could have a bunch of wives, and still they're some parts of southern Utah that still is allowed, even though it's illegal. You know, the church, they have a different division of the Mormon Church, the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But that's a whole nother topic. What I'm trying to talk to you about here is, a girl, 13 years old, a lot of them, when they're that young, they just don't understand the consequences of their actions. Like with most teenagers, they don't understand the consequences of their action. They just are in the moment and don't think about what's happening. So you go ahead and you rape a 13-year-old by an 18-year-old, which is a legal adult in most states, considered a legal adult. And now in Utah, hey, it's okay. You're still going to get some charged with a felony, but it's now third degree. You won't do 8 to 16 or life in prison for it. You'll just, hey, you can get out in 60 days. It's okay. So, oh, dear God. I sometimes just wonder about people. All right, in other news. Yes, Maxwell is back in the news. Now there are tapes. In the latest turn of the immortal scandal over Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump's administration has recorded I shouldn't say thousands, but there are over 100 tapes with Maxwell, and and they're working on a transcript to try to release to the public, which it may even, if they do release it at all. The revelation about Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's conversations with Maxwell last month is certain to renew demands for transparency from sectors of the president's base that was first whipped the Epstein storm into overdrive. And boy, was it in overdrive. There are people just biting at the bit now over Maxwell's visit with the Justice Department and what's going to happen with it. So, senior administration officials plan to meet with President J.D. Vance's residence for dinner, and they're going to discuss how to better handle the Epstein case. It's an extraordinary use of administration's power for a top Justice Department official to spend 2 days talking to someone convicted of grooming and abusing and trafficking young girls for a figure as, revealed as Jeffrey Epstein. And it just stinks of, collusion here and for about this guy. And why? Is because she has been granted limited immunity, and she's also just been transferred to a minimum secure facility for women for her discussions. And how we know that around 100 names have been given to the Justice Department. I'll say that again. Maxwell did give over 100 names to the Justice Department visit. And now keep in mind that those names don't necessarily that any of these 100 names, that any of these people committed crimes. Just because their names are there doesn't mean that they did anything illegal or did anything wrong. Now, I know a lot of you want to say, oh, yes, they did. Well, we don't know that yet. So, everybody's innocent till proven guilty. At least you're supposed to be. Now, the idea that officials would even consider releasing an account of the meeting to brazenly help a president escape some of his political scandal that raises ethical and legal and political questions that reflect the names, and especially those of Donald Trump's second term. But it's hard to see how releasing a transcript of the interview with Maxwell could end up making people less interested in the intrigue that recent actions continue to raise questions about Trump and brew new conspiracy theories among the MAGA activists so obsessed with the case, while widening public exposure to an episode that has blotted out the president's summer winning streak. I've talked about this before. Even if the 100 names are released in this Epstein scandal, that since the Justice Department, the FBI, and Pam Bondi, all of these people, they work under the bidding of Donald Trump. We already know that Donald Trump's name is on this thing. All right. The question is to what extent, and I can guarantee you we will never know. And if it is there, it's going to be manipulated so he'll come out smelling like a rose. That's the whole purpose of all this. How much is in this thing and what can we do to cover up Donald Trump's name? But they want to use it to go after any of the Democrats that are on that list. Then they will. And if there are any Republican high-level people that are on that list, Trump will cover them up too. But he will do that in exchange for political favors from those people. And so you know how this is all going to come down. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this crap out, why this is all going on. All right. So Donald Trump knows what he's done or hasn't done. And again, we don't know if he's done anything illegal or wrong at all. We don't, because it's not out there, and we may never know, especially under this present administration. If there's anything there on Donald Trump, it's going to be buried. Okay, we already know that. So it's you've got to just read between the lines there, folks. You do. Yeah. Okay. In other news, so we all know that Trump just fired the lady that came out with the recent statistics on how well the economy was doing, because he didn't like what was put out there. So what did Donald Trump do? Well, get Stephen Moore to come out and bring some statistics. So Stephen Moore, he's a senior White House fellow, and he's in charge of economics at the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative think tank, and he's also the author of the 218 book Trumponomics. And so he says, here, let me help you out, Donald. I got some statistics here in color press meeting. Well, Trump loves to call White House press corps meetings as soon as possible, and he did just that. And he brings this guy up, and they flip through a bunch of charts that make absolutely no sense. And the press had a lot of questions about those statistics that he came up with that favors that Donald Trump is doing great things with economics, especially with the tariffs, which we'll talk about here in just a second. He is elevating Trump's performance as president to diminish the economic track record of former President Joe Biden and the recent bad news about the economy and inflation. So he stands next to these charts and more, and interjected with a lot of approvals. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's true. And he's they're trying to reset the narrative about the U.S. economy. Now, while the stock market has been solid, we all will agree to that, job growth has turned sluggish and inflation pressures are starting to raise again because of those tariffs. And Moore said he phoned Trump because he wanted to put together some data that shows that he was correct, and dismisses Erica McTaffers, who he fired as the head of the BLS. And he noted that because the reports from the BLS had overestimated the number of jobs created during the last 2 years, they were actually better than what they had out there, and that's because of Joe Biden. And he said that actually it's better by 1.5 million. Where he got those numbers, nobody knows. The press asked him, and he really couldn't say. So there you go. Again, what's going to happen with all this is the Republicans that he's going to put in there in place of the lady that was fired by him, we're all going to have to sit there and ask ourselves, are these numbers really true? Because Trump creates things out of his head. His big words are billions and billions. Everything's billions to him. Money's billions, and job creation's billions, and the economic. I've got billions coming into the coffers because of my tariffs, and maybe he does. The trouble is with all this is, will the American people be able to trust anything that is going to be coming forward as far as the economic data? He wants to get rid of Jerome Powell. He wants interest rates to come down, and he's creating an authoritarian country with all of his people doing his bidding. And we as American people are going to be saying, is this stuff true? Of course, the MAGA base will all say, yeah, it's true. Trump said so it's true. Look at this. And we don't know where we're going to be going with all this. So we all ask ourselves very slowly and very quietly, is anything as far as the economy going forward, is anything from his administration going to be the truth, or how much of it is embellished, and how much of it has been stretched, and how much of it is fake news in his term? Right? Right. All right. Pam Bondi, she's also back in the news. Pam Bondi seeks a grand jury review of origins of Trump's Russia investigation into the Russian interference in the 2016 elections and connections with former President Barack Obama, as well as Joe Biden. Now, this event has dogged Donald Trump throughout much of his first term. Pam Bondi is said to be ordering prosecutors to present evidence to a grand jury investigating the origins of the FBI's Trump-Russia inquiry, according to the AP, Associated Press. Now, the credible probe follows referrals from Trump's administration intelligence officials and targets the investigation that established Moscow's interference in the 2016 election on Donald Trump's behalf. Details remain unclear about which former officials face potential charges, where proceedings will occur, and what specific misconduct allegations could support criminal indictments. Now, we all know that this thing has been hashed and rehashed, and while there was evidence of some social media tweaking, they've proven that, there was no criminal wrongdoing on behalf of Barack Obama or Joe Biden. And this was a bipartisan investigation. All right, Republicans as well as Democrats were involved in these past investigations, and it cleared Obama and Biden. But, you got the Trump administration now, and you got Pam Bondi, who, when Donald Trump tells her, you jump, she always says, how high? And so here we go with more waste of taxpayers' money, just so he can prove a point. And it bothers me that this stuff has to go on and on. We already know Donald Trump hates Barack Obama. He hates Joe Biden because it cost him an election, and nobody messes with Donald Trump. And I will get every single one of you now that I am president. And here we go. So Pam Bondi's going to be doing that. All right. In other wonderful, great news, the wonderful Robert Kennedy Jr. Yes, the the Department of Health and Human Services will cancel contracts and pull funding from some vaccines that are being developed to fight respiratory viruses like COVID-19 and the flu. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced in a statement this past Tuesday that 22 projects totaling $500 million to develop vaccines using mRNA technology will be canceled. So, Kennedy's decision to terminate the projects is the latest in a string of decisions that have put the longtime vaccine critics' doubts about shots into full effect and the nation's health department. Kennedy is just pulling back all of these. So, he just does not like it, and he feels it's just a waste of time, so why have all that money invested in that? You make your own decisions on this one, folks. You know, the health department was created to protect us as Americans, not only adults, but our children and grandchildren, and vaccines are important. So you make your own call on this. Now, debanking is back in the spotlight, and I'll explain a little bit about what this is all about. I love to do some of this financial stuff, you know, again, like the tariffs, you know, 100% tariffs on things. And I'll be talking about these tariffs in just a moment and how that's going to come back to bite us all in the butt here. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Debanking. Let's talk about this. So President Donald Trump said Tuesday that the country's two largest U.S. banks, J.P. Morgan and Chase, and the Bank of America, denied him as a customer. He didn't like that. The banks discriminated against me very badly, and I was very good to the banks, Trump said. They discriminated against many conservatives. And what he's talking about here is back during the January 6th insurrection when Trump was out of office, and there were some concerns about how money is going to be used. These major banks wouldn't stop doing business with certain people, including Donald Trump, and they canceled their accounts, said go bank somebody else. And Republicans have claimed that United States banks have denied accounts to certain customers for political reasons, even some Democrats were involved with, depending on what was going on. Crypto companies have warned more recently that they weren't permitted to get banking services during the Biden era. I had hundreds of millions of dollars, said Donald Trump. I had many, many accounts loaded up with cash. I was loaded up with so much cash. And they told me, I'm sorry, sir, we can't let you have an account. You have 20 days to get your money out. And Trump said of his experience losing bank accounts with J.P. Morgan and Chase, the president said that he then went to the Bank of America, deposited $1 billion plus. It's always, again, billions of dollars. And he was similarly denied. The president pointed to pressure on banks from Washington, D.C. regulators as a key reason for why he and others were denied banking services. I ended up going to small banks all over the place, Trump said. The president's comments came in response to a Wall Street Journal report late Monday stating that the White House is preparing to draft a related executive order again around debanking that would fine banks found discriminating against customers on political grounds. Bank of America did not offer a response to Trump's comments. We don't close accounts for political reasons, they stated, and we agree with the president that regulatory change is desperately needed. Debanking changes are being made by Trump's orders. So this is why this thing is kind of important. Debanking was there basically because of everything going on with crypto. It's still kind of a relatively new way of exchanging monies. And I heard, as I said in this report, although it did kind of focus mostly on Republicans, there were some Democrats too that were involved with this, and you can say maybe it's political, maybe it's not political, but debanking isn't an important way of transferring funds. And, if they think it's going to be used for illegal purposes or for some political gains that may be sketchy, banks are going to refuse to have you deposit money in their banks. And of course, this is all trying to be fine-tuned now and changed regulations, and banks are in favor of it. But why I did the story was basically how Trump just, got all, as he always does, gets up in arms about all of this. So you can't blame the guy, and things like this that goes on, it's just kind of funny. This guy just gets all bent out of shape over everything and anything. All right, let's move on. Let's go on to our top story. And there's going to be some series of videos on this, and it's kind of interesting because this is showing you how we're taking the temperature of these politicians' constituents as they visit back their home state. And you're going to find that American people are getting pissed off, and a lot of them are scared, and they're also getting angry as we visit the Right Has Left podcast on today's top story. Democrats have announced a series of people's town halls as a form of counter-programming after several high-profile protests derailed Republican town halls, prompting GOP leaderships to advise party members to maybe stop holding those public events. So outbursts occurred recently because of this guy, Nebraska Representative Mike Flood. He had a recent town hall meeting, and all hell broke out. Watch this video.
A barrage of pushback as he tries to sell his constituents on President Trump's agenda. The Nebraska Republican getting an earful for his support of Trump's massive tax and spending bill.
There's been a lot of misinformation out there about the bill.
Flood attempting to walk the audience through the health care provisions in the bill, but the crowd interrupting and jeering him.
I can tell you, we're going to see an influx of money into Nebraska hospitals.
One constituent calling for calm.
I implore you to be quiet so that we can hear his responses. Remember, Mike's coming up for a re-election, and we'd really like to know what his responses are.
The bill, the cornerstone of Trump's agenda, is projected to cause more than 10 million Americans to lose their health care coverage over the next decade due to its cuts to Medicaid.
If you choose not to work, you do not get free health care. You do not get free health care.
A new analysis by the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office now estimates the legislation will add more than $4 trillion to the national debt over the next decade, up from the previous estimate of $3.4 trillion. The increase due in part to the roughly $4 trillion in tax cuts, mostly for the wealthiest Americans, included in the final bill. But it wasn't just the legislation sparking outrage. One man pointing to the January 6th attack on the Capitol and Trump's pardons of more than 1,500 people involved.
You said in Seward that you were not a fascist. Your complicity says otherwise. Have you ever spoken out against this administration?
Sir, I want to be very clear with you. Give me a chance to answer his question, I'd be happy to.
Now, it wasn't only him that Marjorie Taylor Greene recently had a town hall meeting, and all hell broke out at her event. Watch.
Town hall held by Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene in Cobb County, Georgia. At least 3 people were physically removed by police officers.
Stop. 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 Are you really doing this? Stop. Are you really doing this?
Ackworth police said 3 people were arrested.
Don't do this. Don't do this.
He grabbed me.
Yes. Don't do this. It's not working. It's not working.
Officers used stun guns on at least 2 men as they tried to remove them from the building. It was not immediately clear what they and a woman removed from the event were protesting.
You can The protest is outside. Thank you very much. Protest
The
is
Congresswoman
outside.
continued to address the town hall during and after the disruptions.
Protest is outside. Bye. Have fun out there.
Now, if you think here in Florida that we don't have these same type of situations, well, you're wrong. Senator Rick Scott visited a Starbucks, and yeah, Senator Rick Scott, he's kind of an odd fellow, and I'll tell you why. I get some of his newsletters, and he is kind of like Donald Trump. He always likes to say all the wonderful things that he's doing for the people of the state of Florida and how he's doing this and doing that. He's just like all the other Republican people in Congress, both representatives as senators. These Republicans do the bidding of Donald Trump. They don't do a damn thing for the people that elected them to office. They like to say they do. But again, like all politicians, and Democrats are guilty of this as well, they basically they talk out of both sides of their mouths. They'll tell you, the American people, one thing, and then they go on and do something else. But I digress here. Watch this from a recent meeting with people in Starbucks with Senator Rick Scott.
In fact, you cut Medicaid, so I couldn't get Obamacare. You're an asshole. You don't care about working people. I'm not talking to you. You don't care about working people. You should be ashamed to show your face around here. We got a million jobs. A million jobs? Great. Who here has a great job? You should. Or is looking forward to finishing school? You really feel like you have a job coming up? You stripped women of access to public health care. Shame on you, Rick Scott. We depend on those services. Rich people like you don't know what to do. When poor people like us need health services, you cut them. Shame on you, Rick Scott. You're an embarrassment to our state.
So you notice how that young lady really gave him the riot act, which he just walked out instead of really responding to like he should. He tried to say a few things, but she kept cutting him off, as she should have. She's trying to get a straight answer out of him, and these politicians don't like to be confronted. When they're on a secured stage with their own constituents, they'll talk for hours and get loud, applause and laughter when they cut down everybody else, the Democrats. But when they're in an uncontrolled situation and try to do these town halls, they go on the defensive really, really fast. And of course, when they get heckled or asked questions or booed at, they all say, well, they're Democrats that planted these people. And it just goes on and on and on. So, Republicans have faced nearly relentless heckling at recent town hall meetings as constituents berated lawmakers over cuts made by the Department of Government Efficiency, such as what this lady's talking about in Medicaid. And President Donald Trump dismissed the controversy as they're all work of paid troublemakers and Republican leaders that have speculated that Democrats organize these protests and plant these people, which is not true. But that's what they got to say, so they don't feel like they're the ones that really to blame. And they just said, stop holding all of these town hall meetings, please. It's not really productive, and it makes us look bad. So don't hold them. Anyway. So that was my top story there, talking about these town hall meetings. They've all made news, and you can tell the Republicans are starting to get a lot of pressure on over the big, beautiful bill. And, these people are scared, and they have concerns, as they should be. We elect them to office. Donald Trump didn't elect them. Well, maybe indirectly he did, but, sometimes you got to stop and listen to the people and not the president, Anyway, so Donald, let's talk about those tariffs. I kept saying and teasing through this podcast I was going to talk about the tariffs, and so let's get into it. President Donald Trump's comprehensive and sweeping tariffs slate took effect just this past Thursday, and on Friday they all went into effect. So it shifts as global trade reset into high gear. Most imports into the United States will now face a baseline of a 10% duty, which the overall average effective tariff rate rising to more than 17%, with the exception of India. Now, he has given them a tariff of 50%, and now it'll be 100% tariffs on computer chips, because he wants those computer chips and, those processors chips like Intel. He wants them all made in the United States, which just is not going to happen. So that's why he put 100% tariffs on those computer chips. Now, if you think that, wow, yeah, you need to think, wow, an $800 laptop with those kind of tariffs is not going to cost you maybe up to $2,000 or $1,500. We already know about the tariffs in Brazil. You want to go to Starbucks? That cup of coffee is going to probably jacked up to over $8 for a cup of coffee with those tariffs. And you think I'm full of crap? You wait and see. So it's crazy. It really, really is. Now, all of this is the highest since 1935 during the Great Depression on those tariffs, thanks to higher duties on some of the biggest U.S. trading partners, according to a nonpartisan Yale Budget Lab think tank. A wide variety of products will be hit. Tariffs will be collected on everything from European Union appliances and Japanese cars to food, furniture, and toys from China and TVs from South Korea. Selected oil and gas imports, along with some smartphones and a suite of goods covered by pre-existing trade agreements with Canada and Mexico, will not, I repeat, will not be affected. Now, together, the duties are the most significant move yet by presidents set on tilting the global economy even more in the favor of the United States. Trump was online to celebrate the moment. It's now midnight. Billions of dollars in tariffs that are now flowing into the United States of America. He said it in all caps, posted on Truth Social. So far, the duties have mainly been jolting the U.S. economy instead. Tariffs, which are taxes on imports collected by the federal government, generally tend to raise costs, although there are some debate with some economists about whether businesses or consumers ultimately bear the weight of those increased prices. Yale's Budget Lab calculates that the inflationary effect on tariffs will cost a typical household an average of as much as $2,400 this year. It forecasts that one of the biggest impacts in clothing, with consumers facing 40% higher prices for shoes and 38% higher costs for apparel in the short run, as retailers that rely on importing clothes from South and Southeast Asia's shift supply chains or grapple with higher costs. Now, we've got trillions of manufacturing that's going to come back, says Treasury Secretary Vicente, as Donald Trump's tariffs on swaths of major U.S. trading partners take effect today. Now, I got to talk about this guy because of the fact of the matter is there's other parts of the story going on. Now, Secretary Vicente, he recently did some interviews, and he again, he's just a talking head for Donald Trump. He said that things just have just kind of gotten out of balance on the recent jobs report that we had, and he says the reason it has gotten out of balance is we have just stopped making things in the U.S. and have been importing everything. This has got to stop, he said. So when he was quizzed about the tariffs issued against key allies like South Korea, Japan, and Australia and the European market, Vicente added that he's confident that tariffs will reinvigorate American manufacturing, citing the corporate commitments from the likes of Apple Computer. Now, we want to get rid of these big deficits that we have with countries that have created these big surpluses and gutted our manufacturing base. We've got trillions and trillions of manufacturing that's going to come back. He said that is going to happen. Remember that. He said that that's going to happen. It's just going to take the next couple of years. So he went on to describe this period as manufacturing renaissance. Vicente is now going to be doing double duty, though, as his job as secretary. And you want to know why he's going to be doing double duty? Because of this guy who Trump just let go. This guy was the head of the Internal Revenue Service, and his name is Billy Long, and He was the head of the IRS. I just said it. Now he has just gotten this job this past June. You know where he's going? He's going to be the ambassador of Iceland. And I don't know what he did to piss off Donald Trump. Nobody knows. But our Treasury Secretary, whom you just I talked about there just recently, is now going to be having to take care of the Internal Revenue Service as well while they find a replacement for Billy Long. And so, you know, Bissett didn't have much to say about that. But now you've seen this. A lot of these cabinet members are having to do double duties because he keeps firing people. If he don't like him, he gets rid of him, and he just piles on the workload onto other people. Can you imagine the stress factor on some of these people that are doing double duty, taking care of various other agencies and departments among their own responsibility? It's got to be crazy, and I'm surprised some of these people don't have a heart attack from all the things that they've got to do. And on top of, you know, trying to follow Donald Trump, because he's always all over the place on things. It varies from hour to hour, day by day, and I'm sure it just drives them crazy and they pull their hair out. But, you know, hey, Billy Long, bye-bye. And if that isn't enough, President Donald Trump is now manning the Los Angeles Olympics task force with him as the head. He just created this position. It drew a lot of ear from the U.S. Olympic Committee. The president signed the task force executive order this past Tuesday, which comprises of him, of course, Vice President J.D. Vance, Attorney General Pam Bondi, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and FCC Chairman Brendan Carr. White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles and Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, among others. Big task force. America is a nation of champions, and in 2028 we'll show the world that America does best, and that's win, Trump said at his recent press release. The Los Angeles Olympics are shaping up to be a wonderful moment for America. It's a great time to be a sports fan in America. Now, why the task force? It's very simple. The 2028 Olympics is going to be held in Los Angeles. Where's Los Angeles? In California. Who's the governor of California? Newsom. Who does Newsom hate with a vengeance? Donald Trump. And Donald Trump doesn't like him either. So that's the task force. He is going to take federal control of the U.S. Olympics and make sure that everything is shown in the best light for America. Again, authoritarian country. Sounds just like the 30s Olympics that Nazi Germany, hosted and got involved with, doesn't it? It's just absolutely crazy that we have to see this, but it's still a ways away. A lot of things can happen between now and then. I mean, things can calm down. Who knows? But again, he's doing this just because he doesn't like the state of California and Newsom. So, Gavin, is the governor, and so he's going to do everything he can to irritate Gavin Newsom. So that's the task force. So the president has also warned of a federal takeover of Washington, D.C. I've talked about this before. He doesn't like Washington, D.C. He thinks Washington, D.C. should be under private control by corporations, and that it doesn't need to exist in its present form. Why? Because Washington, D.C. is basically Democratic. So, anyway, citing violent incidents in the city's crime problems after a group of teenagers were severely beaten in a attempt carjacking in Washington, D.C., Trump has threatened a federal takeover of the nation's capital. Trump shared an image this past a few weeks on True Social of a bloodied Edward Crostine, also known by his online aliases Big Balls. And if D.C. doesn't get its act together and quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of Washington, D.C. and run this city the way it should be run and put criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it anymore. Trump wrote that perhaps it should have been done a long time ago. Then this incredible young man and so many others would not have to had gone through the horrors of violent crime. As this continues, I'm going to exert my powers and federalize the city. Make America great again. Trump repeated the idea to reporters this past August, saying he was going to look at revoking the city's home rule, citing an attack on this gentleman. I hope it was a gentleman. It might have been a girl. I should have looked the name up, so I apologize if it's a male or female. That's on me, but I don't have so much time to get these reports put together. So data shows that in recent years, the district had a significant crime problem, but offenses such as homicide, gun-related and aggravated assault, carjacking, vehicle theft, robbery, and sexual assaults have declined from COVID-19 era peaks. But a big question remains, can Trump actually undertake a federal takeover of the District of Columbia? Experts do say it is possible, but not necessarily simple. He'd have to get congressional approval to do that, but with an all Republican-controlled Congress, it may just happen. And this can get scary for the United States. It is no secret that Trump has wanted to turn Washington, D.C. into a corporate private controlled enterprise for profit. So, now, about these crime statistics. Let's dissect this just a little bit. There are Republican states that also have high crime, just like Washington, D.C. I am not taking anything away from this incident that happened. It's terrible and unforgivable. And we all need to get control of crime. But it is obvious that in this particular situation, Trump is using this particular sad thing that happened as an excuse to further his cause to take over Washington, D.C. and have it controlled by billionaires and run by his appointees. So he has total control of everything and turn this country into an authoritarian operation. It's Project 2025, all textbook. So you can say what you want about it, but that's exactly why he wants to do this. No secret. All right. So let's move on now to the state of Florida as I wrap up this edition of The Right Has Left. And this guy, Corey Mills, is back in the news. So Corey Mills, he just seemed to can't keep himself out of the story. And what is going on with this guy is he's had a little bit of a sexual innuendo come to light, and it's not coming back to bite him in the butt. So Ms. United States accuses Florida Representative Corey Mills of threatening to leak explicit photos and videos. Lindsay Langston, 25 years of age, who was crowned Miss United States back in 2024, filed a complaint on July 14th with the Columbia County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigations Unit and filed a complaint against Corey Mills. Ooh, what'd you do now, Corey? So, according to that complaint, Langston said that she and Mills dated for a little more than 4 years, from November 2021 to February 2025, and she said that two of them lived together in New Smyrna Beach, according to the report. She said Mills would travel between Florida and Washington, D.C. Yeah, and, they would have little things going on. And when he represented Florida's 7th Republican district. Now, Corey Mills and Lindsay Langston, Miss United States 2024, they had an affair. They were living together, and it was going along pretty good. And then she became a state committee woman. Then Langston told deputies that she ended the relationship with Congressman Mill in February 2025 after seeing news reports about a possible assault investigation involving Mills and a woman and his private home in the Wharf neighborhood in Washington, D.C. Now, the Metro Police Department confirmed that officers did in fact respond to a report of an assault at that home, but there were no arrests made. Mills' office confirmed at the time that police were asked to help resolve a private matter and that the congressman denied any wrongdoing. And then after the relationship ended, Langston alleged that Mills sent threatening messages to her from multiple accounts threatening to share private photos and videos of the two of them engaged in compromising positions. According to the complaint. Now, she said Mills accused her of dating, she said Mills accused her of dating after their breakup and that he threatened to harm any guys she dated in the future. Deputies said Langston provided screenshots of text messages and Instagram messages between her and Mills as proof, and she told deputies that she had hired a lawyer and who encouraged her to file a complaint. A spokesperson for the Columbia County Sheriff's Office stated that the complaint was forwarded to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Mills responds, "These claims are false and misrepresent the nature of my interactions with her and what they were saying." Attorney's office representing Langston said she declined to comment on those reports. "We have not received any responses." Mills' statement went on to say, "These claims are false and misrepresent the nature of my interactions. I've always conducted myself with integrity, both personally and in the services of Florida's 7th District." So you've got to really kind of read between the lines of what's going on here. Mills has had several previous run-ins with females, and this is not the first time. And he is one of those guys that likes to thwart his power and think he's a ladies' man. He, as with some other Republican politicians who have since come and gone, it's just one of the things that comes when they get this abuse of power. They think that they have total control, that and true, sometimes young ladies like to get attached to these politicians because they like the power that they have, and they wine them and dine them and give them gifts and things like that. And then unfortunately things backfire, and then they want out of relationships, and this is what happens. So there's not a lot about it that you can do about it, because of the fact of the matter is if you're going to play, you are going to pay. And that is really what it boils down to. And my last story today, another Florida detainment camp is being planned. Where would this second facility be located? Just outside of Tallahassee in the Jacksonville area. The proposed second facility is planned for Camp Balding, and that is a Florida National Guard training site. It's about 27 miles southwest of downtown Jacksonville. However, DeSantis has indicated that the construction at Camp Balding will wait until federal authorities increase deportation activity from the existing South Florida site. And the reason I bring that up is because a federal district judge has blocked further construction of Alligator Alcatraz on a motion filed by environmentalists for the National Preserve area where the camp is being located. The ongoing operations, however, are not affected by the order, but future construction has been halted until the hearing can be held or the ruling has been overturned by a higher court, which is more than likely to happen because a lot of the upper courts is controlled by Donald Trump's appointees. So, how long this hold will happen on Alligator Alcatraz is anybody's guess. But again, operations are still ongoing at Alligator Alcatraz, and but they had more stuff to build there, and that has stopped until this hearing is listened to and approved, and then a ruling is made. So there you go. That is my edition of The Right Has Left. Again, we are very close to having 30 episodes, and I appreciate all of those who have subscribed to my channel on Substack as well as YouTube. And it increasingly gets higher and higher. I thank you so much. And your comments are welcome. Again, I try to be transparent. I know a lot of this is about the Republican Party because they are in the news and they're just doing a lot of goofy stuff right now. But, when Democrats also do things, I also am transparent and bring that up as well. So there you go. Now, having said all that, you try to have a good week. Until my next episode, this is Roy Garten for The Right Has Left. Have a good day. Take care.